and welcome to this episode of Lights Out. I'm your hostess with the mostest ghosties, Sylvia Shults. So, I did an experiment the other day. I tried to actually film an episode of Lights Out with moving pictures and everything. I'm a technotard, so it didn't work. Actually, my tablet tells me the video has been uploaded to YouTube, to my channel, but I can't find it. So if you run across it in your YouTube wanderings, congratulations. So instead, we are going to stick with the tried and true for at least a little while longer, while your technologically challenged hostess with the mostest ghosties gets them all in a row. And it's time for a Christmas story. Cuddle up close with your mug of hot chocolate, or hot buttered rum, I don't judge. And let's go lights out. It was Christmas Eve, 1885. Patrick Rooney and his wife were celebrating the good cheer of the season. Another glass, my dear? Rooney hooked his finger through the handle of the brown half-gallon jug at the table, lifted the jug, and shook it playfully at his wife. She grinned across the table at him. "Don't mind if I do," she said with ponderous dignity. "Go ahead and fill her up." She held out her glass, and Rooney tipped the jug. Smooth amber liquid burbled out into her glass. She sipped it and smiled again in appreciation. The door flew open, and John Larson, the Rooneys' hired man, came blustering into the kitchen, stamping his feet and blowing on his cold fingers. "Chores are done," he muttered. "Whew, it's cold out. Care for a tot of whiskey, John?" Patrick Rooney reached for another glass and poured a couple of fingers in the bottom of the tumbler. He handed the glass to Larson, who took it with a grateful nod. "Get that down your gullet, it'll warm you right up. Cheers!" Rooney raised his glass. Mrs. Rooney raised hers, too, and clinked it against Larson's drink. "Cheers and Merry Christmas!" "Merry Christmas," Larson agreed, and threw back half the whiskey in one quick swallow. He stayed up drinking with the Rooneys for a while longer, talking and laughing and sipping the strong, smooth whiskey. After 2 drinks, Larson stood. "Well, Christmas Day or no, I've got chores to do in the morning. I'm off to bed." Mrs. Rooney raised her glass once more as Larson headed up to his bedroom. "Merry Christmas, John," he heard as he climbed the stairs. Larson woke up in the middle of the night, coughing and sneezing. He found it hard to breathe, and in the dark of the night he thought miserably that he might be coming down with a cold. He sniffed and hacked a few more times, then managed to drift back off to sleep. He didn't feel much better when he woke up early the next morning, Christmas Day. His throat was still scratchy, and it hurt to swallow. He rubbed at his eyes, which were dry and itchy. He got dressed in the darkness of the bedroom. Maybe a glass of cool water and a breath of fresh air would set him to rights. Larson made his way through the dark house to the kitchen. The bright yellow glow of the kerosene lamp would bring cheer to the gloom of the early morning. He fumbled in a drawer for the box of matches, and tried to strike a match on the stove to light the lamp. But instead of catching with a satisfying scritch and flare, the match head just skidded smoothly across the cast-iron surface of the stove. Puzzled, Larson ran a finger over the cold stove, then rubbed his fingertip against his thumb. The stove, and everything else in the kitchen, was covered in a greasy, sooty grime. "This is just plain strange," Larson thought. "I'd best wake the Rooneys." He knocked on his employer's bedroom door. When no answer came from within, Larson bit his lip gently, then pushed the door open. There lay Patrick Rooney, sprawled dead on the floor. John Larson gasped, then shouted for Mrs. Rooney, but there was no answer. The house was still and silent in the early morning light. Larson stumbled out of the house. He went to the barn, saddled one of the horses, and rode to the neighboring farm where Patrick Rooney's son lived. He told the son of his father's untimely death, and together they rode back to investigate further. By the time they arrived back at the Rooney's farm, it was fully light out, and in the light of day the two men made a horrifying discovery. In the kitchen, every surface was covered in greasy black soot. Beside the table, there was a 3-foot by 4-foot hole in the floor. Underneath that, lying on the cold floor of the cellar, 1 floor below, was what was left of Mrs. Rooney. She had weighed 200 pounds in life, but now all that remained was a skull, a chunk of vertebra, part of a foot, and a scattering of ashes. Even stranger, except for the greasy soot, there was no sign of the fire that consumed Mrs. Rooney and burnt a huge hole in the floor. 1 corner of the tablecloth was slightly scorched, but that was all. The cause of Patrick Rooney's death was obvious. He had died of smoke inhalation. If John Larson hadn't closed his bedroom door before going to sleep, he might have died too. But the cause of Mrs. Rooney's death was not so easily explained. The coroner said that only a fire burning at over 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit for several minutes could have consumed the heavy woman's body so completely. But no one, not the coroner nor any other investigator, could explain why there was no other damage to the kitchen. To this day, Mrs. Rooney's death remains a mystery. In modern times, cases like this one are explained by using the term spontaneous human combustion, a phenomenon described as the high-speed consumption of a human body by intense heat with no apparent outside cause. Victims of spontaneous human combustion do seem to have a few things in common. They are often female, and they are often overweight. In many cases, the victims are found to have been drinking alcohol before their demise. The combustion, though mysterious, is usually rapid and complete, incinerating most of the body and leaving only scattered body parts behind. Stranger still, nearby items are left untouched by the searing heat, even flammable materials like cloth. One more intriguing coincidence? Nearly all cases of spontaneous human combustion have occurred during the winter months in the Northern Hemisphere. Scientists and paranormal investigators have tried and failed to explain spontaneous human combustion. It remains a mystery even today. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at a cheery Christmas of times past. This story and many more can be found in my book, Ghosts of the Illinois River. Look for it on Amazon or visit www.sylviashults.wordpress.com for more information on this and other books. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're welcome to click the subscribe link and get notified every time a new episode is posted. Join us next time when we'll be chatting with Ophelia Julian, an author who specializes in young adult supernatural fiction. Yes, she writes fiction, but she has plenty of true stories and experiences of her own to share. Join us the next time we go Lights Out.